Hi, my name is Sienna Shadd. I'm 15 years old and I'm from Liberty Lake, Washington. When I'm reading about the Climate Commitment Act, I see arguments for and arguments against it. What I would like to know is what is the first step you would take in order to create a compromise that aids both sides of the arguments?
In the legislative process, there's always compromise as we work through the process. However, the Climate Commitment Act was definitely not one where there was a lot of room for compromise because the policy itself really represents a fundamental difference in basic Republican and Democrat values as it applies to energy policy. So there was little to compromise on the act, as the Republicans rightly believed that the Climate Commitment Act was going to really increase in higher energy costs for the average Washington family. And since the structure of the Climate Commitment Act socializes the cost of carbon dioxide emissions, it changes the price of energy for the homes, for businesses, and for manufacturing, for running cars, trucks, tractors, all of it. And so that first year, the Climate Commitment Act pulled $1.5 billion out of the economy. And that's money that was keeping life affordable for you and your family. So we think, short of rethinking the policy altogether, the only answer is to flatten the curve. So what I mean is that the number of allowances that were available for energy companies to purchase through the Climate Commitment Act auction were very few. It was a very tight, they called it a tight auction, in order to get the most carbon dioxide emissions out of the economy as possible. But in reality, the technology and the innovation that's required for industry to develop that is going to take time. And so an aggressive auction taking $1.5 billion out of the hands of the very people that are required to develop the innovations needed to decarbonize is not practical. And so if we could flatten the curve by creating a less expensive allowance format like they did for energy intensive trade exposed companies, so that they don't pay allowances until 2035, giving them a long lead in order to innovate the decarbonization technologies, would help. But short of that, that is how California handled their market. When they first started, it was too aggressive and it was very expensive, and it was threatening their industries in California to leave and move to affordable countries like China and India. And so they changed their policy to have more allowances. And ironically, the economic growth in California has been robust. And so they have more emissions than what the Climate Commitment Act in California is actually removing from the economy. And so they continue to increase emissions. So I do believe that if you allowed the free market to work, because it's already been agreed that we need to decarbonize, if we allowed industry to keep the resources they need to do the innovation and the creativity to decarbonize, it would probably occur more affordably and much faster.
Well, compromising our children's and their children's future is not something that we should do. That said, with any major program like the Pollution Reduction Act that we are talking about, the Climate Commitment Act, there will be changes we need to make along the way to make it better. For example, because we all share one airshed, we are working on legislation to allow us to officially link with similar programs in California and Quebec. That takes negotiations and a few changes to our own program to make sure it all links up. What we won't compromise is the ability to spend the proceeds that polluters are paying to invest in electric school buses that offer cleaner and quieter rides to school, free public transit across the state to anyone under 18, investments to upgrade schools to have cleaner heating and cooling systems in them, plus the need to add cooling to our schools as the planet continues to warm. In fact, the warmest year since we have been recording that information is 2023, and we owe it to your generation to turn the tide on climate change, and there's really no compromise on that.